Saturn, Aquarius 24. Man turning his back on passion and teaching from experience. Sharing our experiences to teach others. Those of us who have taken a significant step towards deepening our level of maturity have a role to play in the development process of others who have taken fewer steps. We are able to explain what is happening and what to do about it to another as they encounter similar challenges to what we have experienced. It implies that there is a duty to assist another if we are able, as they struggle with a problem we have ourselves overcome. We're going through times of change, so rapid that it's shocking for many people. And it may be that your own experience of dealing with these problems is more, is better, is deeper, it's more considered, it's more advised than someone else's. And so you tend to take the opportunity to share that with them, to explain things to them. And in this regard, we're all of us teachers. All of us try to explain things to other people. That's just the nature of life, really. I've encountered this everywhere I've gone. People are trying to help. They're helpful. What we have to remember is that there is an implication here of superior knowledge. If somebody's explaining something to you, it's because they know and you don't. Now, if that goes on and on and on, the one with the greater knowledge tends to claim authority. And if that goes on further, it becomes tyrannical authority. And we have that with teachers generally. In our school days, and even at university, teachers take a dominant role socially. They become figures of importance. The teacher is more important than the student. And that inevitably will corrupt the flow of knowledge. On any level, parents teach kids things and they take this authority role as they do that. And the kids grow up to defer to the authority of the parent even as adults. So they become adult and they look for a parent replacement. And they don't claim their own sovereignty. This is the point. So the whole thing of teaching is fraught with difficulty because of this implied authority and the power that goes with that of the one who knows in teaching the one who doesn't. It doesn't have to be like that. The difference, I think, is to do with this idea of explaining rather than persuading. A lot of teachers argue the party line. They persuade you to believe what they have been persuaded to believe. Now, this is not only on a political and social level, this is on the level of academics as well. Many of the things that I was taught at school just weren't true. They were wrong. And that's partly because the teacher was 100 years out of date. For example, in teaching Newtonian physics, cause and effect and that kind of thing. Well, it's not like that. That's not how the world works. Within a limited sphere, yeah, Newton was right, but Einstein kind of demonstrated that sphere is limited, and Heisenberg went further, and so on. So by the time I was taught physics at school, they were 100 years out of date. So there's that level where the teacher is actually simply ignorant. They can't actually understand what it is they're supposed to be teaching. Now, that's not the exceptional case at all. That is the general case, that teachers just don't know very much. They're not really masters of their craft. Some of them are, but most are not. And we pay them peanuts, don't we? So we get monkeys. We can't expect teachers to be much good unless there's a real sort of encouragement to be that way. So even on that schoolboy kind of level, the teaching formula is corrupted, and when you find a teacher, let's now talk about like spiritual teachers. We all look for somebody to guide us into a deeper understanding of the meaning of life, in order that we can understand the meaning of our own lives and make better decisions and better understanding. So we look for spiritual teachers. Now, to say the same applies is a little bit strong, but it's there to some extent. I've met more teachers that don't really know what they're doing than I have the good ones. I've been very privileged to have been with some excellent teachers, but even their knowledge runs out at some point. You can't know everything about everything. And when you're in that role of being a teacher, the questions that are asked of you are asked in such a way as you're expected to know the answer. And that's the lie that goes along with the teaching equation. The teacher doesn't know all of the answers, and it's unlikely that they deeply, fully, totally understand even the answers that they do know. So I think that we have to understand that when a teacher is persuading you rather than explaining, you're on thin ice. Because anyone who's trying to persuade you, in other words, convince you, make you understand something their way, then they probably don't understand it themselves fully. If somebody fully understands something, they can explain it. All of your questions, grist for the mill, they can just explain all of the answers. And then a good teacher would say, well, I don't know the answer to that question. I'll look it up, and they go and find out, or they discuss it philosophically, shall we say. That's a good teacher. A good teacher must be learning. If a teacher is presenting information without learning anything, then they're a lecturer, just passing on like a parrot, the same old, same old. But if a teacher is actually genuinely opening up to further their own knowledge, then teaching arises. One of the teachings within Sufism is that there has to be a positive and a negative polarity between the teacher and the student. Typically, the student is a student body, a collective group consciousness that collectively outweighs the teacher's knowledge. This is not discussed very much, but that's how it all works. If a teacher is with most students and one-to-one, there isn't a lot to expect to gain from that for the teacher. It's not that the teacher's going to learn very much from one person, but in teaching a group, that's different. The group consciousness will outweigh that of the teacher, so the teacher can learn from the group soul. And that's the condition for teaching to arise. Knowledge wants to be known and has to come down into a situation where the polarity between positive and negative is in existence. So a flow of energy between those two polarities is the teaching. It has to be an exchange. And if the student body just doesn't really get what's going on at all, then there is no negative polarity. It just won't be functional, it won't be effective, and the teacher's not going to learn very much. But if and that's what happens when you try and persuade people. If you say, do it my way, then people will guard against that. That's obvious. But if you say, I think it's like this is what works for me, if you're explaining yourself, then the other person will be on your side, opening up. Now that opening up, especially if it's done collectively and the group opens up to support the teacher in the teacher's quest to find more knowledge to flow through, then that healthy flowing of the teaching equation occurs. So man turning his back on passion and teaching from experience. So this passion is the persuasion. You must do this, you must think the way I think, I want you to believe what I believe. That's passion. And this is about someone turning their back on that, not being subject to persuasion, doing it the same way, believing what has ever been believed. Because actually it needs to be challenged. For teaching to occur, you have to say, yeah, that's right. That isn't, not in today's environment. out of date. That was never right in the first place. You have to be discriminating to really get proper teaching. And we go beyond that in this particular degree, and we're saying it is the implied duty of those who know to instruct those who don't know. Serenity is found when knowledge and experience are in harmony. So when we look at whether the teaching works, we find that our experiences really are the only sincere judge of that. If we're told something and we don't experience it, we just don't know if it's true or not. If we have experienced it, then we know it's true. And we not only validate the teaching, but we contextualize it. We see how it works in practice. And basically, if it doesn't work in practice, it doesn't work. The physical realm itself is to test hypotheses. And one hypothesis is, I like being this way, I wonder if that works. That's your life. Your life is, in other words, testing an hypothesis that the way you are is realizable, is sound, it works. And we have to do that with all knowledge. Everything we are told, we have to test and make ours, or we don't know it. And that this degree is about that relationship with teaching, the teaching formula. And one of the Sufi books that I read when I was a younger man was Learning How to Learn. I think this was Idris Shah. Learning How to Learn. Nice idea, isn't it? Learning how to learn. There's a very definite process when we're trying to understand the mysteries. We have to sift between that which is wrong and that which is maybe right, and then that which we've experienced and that which we have yet to experience, and that which is contextualized in our lives at this time. It's the 21st century now. Not much has been explained about esoteric belief, which is new in the 21st century. Most of it is old. Sometimes that's good. That which passes the test of time is considered mature. But some of it is just not appropriate anymore because we're not in that situation. So we have to sift and filter and go through all the teachings, all of them. You know, some of them are eternal. Seek and ye shall find. Lovely. Some of them are not. Honor your mother and father. Why? If they're dishonorable people. Most of us today are much more awakened, much more conscious than our parents were. So why honor their foolishness? I can't get that. So even though I'm not a Christian, I take what's given to me in the Bible and see what I keep of it. Well, I'll keep seek and ye shall find, and I'll throw out honor your mother and father. Personally, now you might want to do something different. So the man turning his back on passion and teaching from experience, energy, is being visited now by Saturn. So Saturn likes to bring things into a crystallized form. Life itself is ever changing. This particular moment is different from the one a moment ago, all the time. Reality is just a series of flashes, in a sense. But we can't get that. We can't make any meaning of that. We can't get any settled continuity and a feeling of security from that. So what we do is we turn it into something which has duration. We crystallize all the flashing moments, billion moments of time, and we crystallize that into a waveform which has stability and duration and a crystallized reality. That's Saturn's job, to crystallize what otherwise would be a Neptunian reality. In other words, a kaleidoscopic wafting change that had no directedness at all, no past, no future. We can't live like that. So Saturn says, bring duration to it. Now, in this particular case, we're saying, okay, teachings, they evolve. One teaching morphs into another, and it just depends upon where you are, who you're with, geographically, in the time, in the social sort of station where you are. All of these factors create an effect upon whether any particular teaching is a valid teaching. All of these things. It's as amorphous as Neptune, really. So Saturn says, no, I'm not having that. I want to know what's what. And I was talking to a client only yesterday, and she's just about to go through a major Saturn transit over Pisces sun. And my advice to her was, now you have to crystallize your identity. Pisces identity, very amorphous, very Neptunian. Saturn comes along. You have to choose between whether you are this or whether you are that on the outer level. Inwardly, we are infinite and ever-changing, of course, but engaging with physical reality in this world that we live in, we have to have a Saturn aspect. So Saturn moving into this particular degree is telling us that of the teachings that we know, one set works for us for a duration. We can depend upon it lasting for as long as we need it to. As long as we make a very clear statement of what we're doing, then it will be clear to us. So Saturn is inviting us to crystallize our thoughts, crystallize our ideas, crystallize our identity. Say, this is. And then it will have duration. If we don't do that, then we're left in this confused, ambiguous, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do that, maybe I'll be persuaded by the other. Yeah, okay, as a child you can do that. Lovely. Freedom, because you've got nothing to do. As an adult, no. As an adult, you need Saturn reality to function in the world, to take responsibility for yourself. And without deciding who you are, you don't know what to defend. And you don't know what to do with your potentials either. So we now have the opportunity and actually requirement to structure who we are, how we are, what we're doing, what we believe, and put that into the world as a force, a Saturn force that you can protect and defend. I would say that's what this is about.